Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story. It's April the 17th, day 107. And we are in 1 Samuel chapter 25 today. And an odd story, well, I say an odd story, I don't know. I think it probably depicts people, that we deal with on a regular basis. Some interesting names. There's a piece in this story that we're not going to talk about that happens. I probably will reference it later. But it says, I'll just start reading in verse 2. It says, there was a wealthy man from Maon who owned property near the town of Carmel. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and it was sheep shearing time. This man's name was Nabal, and his wife Abigail was a sensible, beautiful woman. But Nabal, a descendant of Caleb, was crude and mean in all his dealings. So we're introduced to a man and his wife with diametrically opposed personalities. So I want to ask you about both of them. So it says she was sensible and beautiful. How do you picture her? Alyssa, you've asked me a few times recently, who would you pick to play this in a movie?
I would think they're like, oh goodness. I think that she's probably, I would view a young Meryl Streep.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, she just has such a presence about her that I think would work well. I don't know.
Calming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you think of sensible and beautiful, what do you think of?
My wife.
Okay.
Yep.
Good answer.
You're trying to score some points.
Making up for some things I said on previous podcast episodes. No, but literally though, I do think of her. But I don't know. In terms of casting, I got beautiful and sensible. I think Meryl Streep is sensible. I gotta think. I had to think about it for a while though. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. But it says he, on the other hand, was crude and mean. Mm-hmm. When you think of crude and mean, what do you think of?
Just a person who's bitter all the time, who nothing you do can please them. That's kind of what I think of when I think of someone who's just crude and mean. Someone you can never satisfy them. They're always upset, no matter what you do. They think they deserve everything. I think we all probably know at least one person like this, or a few people like this. But yeah, not the kind of people I like to hang out with. People that need Jesus, so I try to hang out with some, but it's draining. These kinds of people are typically draining, that's what I'd say.
He was selfish and he didn't care to hide it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's funny because I was listening that Zack was trying to describe. So for me, I know some mean people and I know some crude people, but I don't often see them together. So I know some crude people. They're crass. The way they say things. It's just offensive all the time. Then it's like a bull in a china shop. That crude person cursing. Off color. It doesn't matter in public. There's no anything. We might have had people in leadership recently that would remind you of this.
I can't think of who you're talking about, but I'll have to think about it.
Go ahead and name names.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're just crude. It don't matter who's around.
They say what comes to mind and they don't care. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But I know mean people, but usually mean people are conniving. Mm-hmm. That's how I describe it. Mm-hmm. But you get a crude person and a mean person together. Mm-hmm. Man, nobody wants to be around that person, right?
Right.
But didn't stop him from being a good, smart businessman. Apparently, he's a pretty savvy business guy. So he's a wealthy man, and it's
almost like the wealth though probably made that worse.
Yeah,
like he was probably harsh, and like this is the way things need to be done, and that's what made him a good businessman. And then he was like, well, I could just do whatever I want.
Yeah, because I'm rich. Yeah. So it says that David heard that Nabal was shearing his sheep. and I sure hope I don't get tongue-tied trying to say that again, but it says, he sent 10 of his young men to Carmel with this message for Nabal: peace and prosperity to you, your family, and everything you own. I am told that it is sheep shearing time. While your shepherds stayed among us here in Carmel, we never harmed them, and nothing was ever stolen from them. Ask your men, and they will tell you it is true. So would you be kind to us, since we have come at a time of celebration? Please share any provisions you might have on hand with us, with your friend David. David's young men gave this message to Nabal in David's name, and they waited for a reply. And Nabal's reply was, who is this fellow David? Nabal sneered to the young man. Who does this son of Jesse think he is? There are lots of servants these days who run away from their masters. So he says, who is this guy David? But he knows who David is, because there's two giveaways. He knows his father. He says he's the son of Jesse, and then he accuses him of running off from his master. So apparently he's speaking of his departure from Saul, serving in the palace. Why do you think he had such disdain for David?
Have you ever had a friend try to get you into a pyramid scheme before? And this is related, I promise. So even like the message that David has, where he says like, from your friend David. I don't know if they were actually friends, but I had someone one time, and I've had this happen a few times, but someone writes me and say, hey, it's your friend blank. And I'm like, who says this? It's your friend? Like, who writes that? It's like, obviously, if you're my friend, I would know you're my friend, And so...
Just reminded you, Zach.
Yes.
In case you forgot.
Yeah, just in case you forgot, we are friends. We're close. And so... but so when you get that kind of message, he's kind of taking it. Now, obviously, this is not a pyramid scheme. This is just David being like, look, we've done all this for you. Even the people later on will say, like, David and his men actually protected us. They've been like a wall protecting us. And so David has almost done a service to them. Besides not being, he didn't disservice them, and he also provided a service for them. And yet he is kind of reacting as if David's asking the world of him, or asking him to do something that would... it doesn't seem like David's asking for everything. He's not asking for all of his wealth. He hasn't done anything wrong to him. And so,
he has helped him. He's reminded him that he's helped him.
Yeah, and so I think the reaction that he has reminds me of my reaction when someone tries to get me to do something that I'm like, even though I might know them, I might be Facebook friends with them, I knew them in the past, but me being like, what are you talking about? Like, we're not friends. Like, what are you trying to get me involved with this? That's kind of like, I can kind of feel with Nabal in that situation, but also too, the way he reacts is pretty outrageous. He does know who he is, but he's just saying, I don't know who you are. Not meaning I don't know who you are at all, but that we're not friends. We're not this close, and why should I help you?
Listen.
He was being harsh and evil. They set up the story and they let you know that right at the beginning, mm-hmm. and this is just
that he's a jerk.
The kind of what happens. I don't know.
Yeah, I read into some of it that he's loyal to Saul. Mm-hmm. That's part of what I read into it. That David's on the run. I'm loyal to Saul, or at least that's what I think mm-hmm. is happening. And maybe I'm wrong in the storyline.
It's so hard to keep the storyline straight.
Especially the way we recorded this.
The way we're recording this, and
but he asks for something and he says, heck no, just like, in the crude language, there were some curse words in here. If he's as crude as he says, it wasn't just a soft, return. Yeah. No, I'm not doing anything. The servants, though, immediately know we got to do something about this, and they go to Abigail. Why do they go to Abigail?
She's like the good one. It sounds. From what it says, it sounds like she's the kind of person like when like kids, they go to one parent, the parent says no, they go to the other parent. It's kind of like this situation, except that Abigail seems like she's genuinely considerate. And sensible.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing, is that she's sensible. He's not thinking about it, whereas the men are like, they know how strong David is in his army. They've heard the stories. They know of what these men are capable of. Even though they've shown them grace and they've been very kind to them, they know what David is capable of. They know what God is capable of. And so I don't know if it's necessarily them trying to. It's not they're just trying to go against Nabal, but it's that they're trying to save their lives. So they're trying to save their own skin and save everything they know.
Right.
So
I think that like any spouse or any close relationship, there's kind of like these checks and balances where like there's a certain spouse that's good at one thing and another spouse that's good at another thing. Like obviously Abigail was in charge of the being kind and maybe giving away some of the wealth and things like that, and Nabal was not the one, and obviously David didn't know that, and he should have sent them to maybe to Abigail in the first place, and that would have changed the whole story. But and I think if Nabal maybe would have realized his weakness in this, and I mean it doesn't end well for him. He could have said, let Abigail make that decision.
Yeah,
exactly.
And he just
know,
didn't have enough self-awareness to
right.
say, this isn't in our best interest.
Right.
And she goes and gets all the raisin cakes and just loads of food, because clearly they have
200 loaves of bread. How
Yeah.
many ovens did that man own?
Yeah, exactly. Or how long did they store them?
Maybe.
How long had they been putting them up? Because they were preparing for a big party. I mean, this was shearing time, was celebration time. But it says, when Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed low before him. She fell at his feet and said, I accept all the blame in this matter, my lord. Please listen to what I have to say. I know Nabal is wicked and ill-tempered man. She describes him differently. He's wicked and ill-tempered. Please don't pay any attention to him. He is a fool, just as his name suggests. But I never even saw the young men you sent. She accepts all of the blame in this situation. What does it say about her character that she was willing to say, it's all me. This one's on me. Forgive me.
she's a much better person than Nabal. And even here too, it's even like implied, because she said, I never even saw the young men you sent. It implies that I think she many times is the negotiator. I think in the business, it sounds like she might be the one who typically is the one who's part of the negotiations, that she's got a much better temper than him, and also too, even just her action there as she takes all the blame for it. I think she's being very self-sacrificial, that she cares about the people. She really has a heart for the people that, that work for them, and that she's willing to do this is, I think, even points us again, as we're doing one single story, points us to Christ, is that he's willing to lay down his life for the people.
He took our blame.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's what she's doing as well.
It seems like in all of these stories that we've read, the family is just so affected by a decision that one person in that family makes. And so she realizes that. I mean, there's times when something ceremonially goes wrong and the whole family gets swallowed up, so I think that she realizes that, and she hopes that this plea will, this ask for forgiveness will save her family.
Yeah. She has she's not enamored with her husband. She's committed to her husband, but she's not enamored with her husband.
Because she's trying to save him too.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
She's there to save them all. Herself, the servants, her husband, but she doesn't try to say he's something different than he really is. She says, I'm here to try to make amends. And, in the context of marriage, you mentioned usually one's gifted one way, another's gifted another. We have to be able to lean into those things, because that's what brings the oneness to the home, the growth to the family. And she becomes his protection. Usually in Scripture, it's flipped. It's the man being the protector of the wife. But in this particular story, and there are some other places, Deborah is a good example, it becomes the one woman that's the protector for the man. And without her intervention, who knows what would have happened, where things would have been. And so, David, he replies, to her that positively, thank God for your good sense, is how David describes it. He says, bless you. He says, I swear by the Lord, the God of Israel, who has kept me from hurting you. If you had not hurried out to meet me, not one of Nabal's men would be alive. He said, return home in peace. I have heard what you said. We will not kill your husband. He's like, You know, because really I think that's who she's saving is his arrogant self. But this is the funny part, okay? Oh, I shouldn't say that. That's terrible. That shouldn't say this is funny. Okay, it says, when Abigail arrived home, she found Nabal was throwing a big party and was celebrating like a king. Maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe he wants to be king. Maybe he wants to be treated like a king, and David's not doing that. It says he was very drunk, so she didn't tell him anything about her meeting with David until the dawn of the next day. That's a wise move, you know. That shows her sensibility. It says, in the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him what had happened. As a result, he had a stroke and lay paralyzed on his bed like a stone. About 10 days later, the Lord struck him. This is probably a curveball question, but clearly I think this might even be where we get this saying from. We don't don't stroke out when I tell you this. You know, if I tell you this, you're going to have a stroke, you know. Have you ever heard people say that? You know, don't have a stroke. You know, if I tell you something, I'm going to tell you something, but don't have a stroke.
No, I haven't heard that.
Never heard that phrase.
No. Yeah.
I don't know.
I've heard that. I mean, I use that phrase. I'll say that from time to time. I'm going to tell you something, but don't have a stroke when I tell you.
Yeah.
How does certain news words get used affect our physical body? That's the curveball question. Do you ever have somebody talk to you and then you feel the physical weight of it?
Yeah. I'll give an example.
Okay. I'm shocked.
The other day, I always have something to say. The other day, Discover Card took out double the amount they were supposed to out of my regular bank account, and it was a lot of money. And so when Jess tells me, "Hey, Discover Card took blank out of your bank account," my heart sunk. I felt like I was going to be stomach sick because I was like, that's a lot more than I anticipated. And then Discover, of course, we talked to them. They're like, oh, it was a mistake. We'll be sending it back within 9 business days. Driving me crazy. But one of those things that's like, oh my god, I literally felt like my stomach had dropped. I was like, oh my, and I felt cold in the moment. It's so weird. It's one of those it's kind of a stupid example, but it changed just that piece of information. It's almost like when you're told something when someone passed away, which is much greater, I think. It's sometimes you're so overwhelmed with emotions, how you just start crying. It's just you almost like a cold emptiness. There's depending on the information someone tells you, just words alone can have such a huge impact on your physical well-being.
Alyssa?
So, I think what you're talking about is probably a trauma response, because our bodies remember things that we don't. Mm-hmm. And so there are times when I've gone into certain places and had certain physical reactions, even though whatever was causing that problem has been solved for a while, and you still feel that. And so I think that's a normal thing. Your body remembers things that your brain doesn't.
Right. Or you try not to remember.
Right.
It's almost like if you eat Italian food and then simultaneously get sick and you throw it up, then you don't want to eat Italian food again. Mm-hmm. You know, it's it almost repulses you, right. Because there's a physical reaction, and the two may not be correlated. Yeah. It just might have been happenstance.
There's a certain brand of garbage bags that I do not buy because one time I got super sick and I was throwing up to this garbage bag, and the garbage bag was scented. And now whenever I walk through the garbage bag aisle, whenever I smell that specific garbage bag scent,
you have a physical
start to gag. It's crazy. Your body does remember things that even your mind isn't even thinking about. I don't even realize until I smell it. I'm like, oh, Gain. Why do they put the scent of Gain in a garbage bag? Drives me crazy.
So we shouldn't use Gain detergent.
It's just the garbage bags though. For some reason, Gain, regular Gain, I don't. Well, I mean, I actually have not tried using Gain, and I don't know. I don't want to throw up in my washing machine though. That'd be terrible.
We need to all use it for one staff.
We're gonna buy some Gain, the little plug-ins on the wall. We're gonna put them all throughout the office.
I'm getting sick all over the office, all over the church.
Oh man, don't egg us on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I do think that trauma, words can be physical trauma, and we don't realize it. You know, I say it often. Ever who said sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me was the biggest liar that had ever walked the face of the earth. Because words do hurt.
Yep.
Like physically they can hurt. They physically can be weight. They physically can be a burden. They physically can throw everything off track. Clearly here he gets the news and it's so infuriating that he has a stroke, and he eventually dies. So what is not in the text that we were going to cover, but that does happen, is it makes such an impression on David that when he dies, he sends for her to be his wife. And
such an Old Testament thing to do.
yeah, exactly. But he was so impressed by her, like
Yeah.
that was my. So this is.
Meryl Streep's impressive. I mean.
Yeah, well,
She's
so
pretty awesome. That is true.
We make blonde jokes for a reason, because typically we separate beauty and sensibility, or beauty and intelligence. That tends to be stereotypical, whether it's right or not. We do a lot of things that aren't right stereotypically, but to describe, like, she's the complete package, and David was like, I need her in my life. Maybe she'll save me from some stupidity, right? I'll speak for me, my spouse. I'm thankful that my spouse keeps me out of some really difficult spots that I could get myself into if I wasn't careful. I don't know about y'all.
I'll talk about the denim thing, and that, like, if my wife wasn't there, I would be wearing denim everything all the time. So thank
Please
God
do
for
that.
her.
Just walk out of the house wearing it one day. Jean jacket, jean shirt,
Yeah.
jorts. Wear some jorts.
Shorts over a pair of jean pants. So it's just like double it.
Some jean Chuck Taylors
Oh gosh.
with a jean hat.
That'd be pretty awesome. Actually, though, that does not sound so bad. Oh, like Justin Timberlake in like 2002. That was a look.
How do you know?
How do I know?
What? 3?
Yeah, something like that. I was like 5, I think, 5 or 6. So yeah, I can remember that. Yeah,
2002, I was 5. Oh my goodness. Either of you have anything in this story that sticks out to you that we didn't talk about that you wanted to make sure we covered?
Do you think? Here's a question for you. Do you think I mean, the vibe I was getting is that David was gonna go take care of Nabal.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Abigail calms him down and obviously he dies because the Lord struck him down. And David heard that Nabal died and he said, the Lord has kept his servant from doing evil. So what do you think that if David had gone and actually been able to kill Nabal, that would have been a bad thing that David would have done?
Probably. I think that seems to be a clear indicator that she not only saved his life, I'm talking about her husband's life.
Mm-hmm.
He died, but that's what she was there for. She may have saved David's life,
Right.
where he would kill someone unnecessarily. And I think there's a twofold blessing to her sensibility. She saves David and she saves him. And I think David maybe in his temper probably had killed some people in his time that he might not should have. Maybe his anger had gotten the best out of him a couple of times. And so, yeah, the answer is that. I think she saved him from doing wrong, and he probably would have had to pay a price for it had he allowed his emotions to get the best of him.
Yeah.
Good reason to marry someone.
It's a good reason to marry somebody who's sensible.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sensible. Sensible is better than beauty, by the way, in case you don't know that. That's just my 2 cents.
But if you can get both, why not? But sensible is, of course, more important. I'm never doing myself any favors on here. But my wife is beautiful and sensible. Just to be clear. All right, let's pray.
Why don't you pray? So you shut up.
We'll pray. Oh, gosh. Dear God, we thank you that we just get to have a good time on this podcast, Lord, and to learn more about you and your word. And God, I just pray, Lord, that you would surround us with people who are sensible, Lord, that keep us from doing wrong, Lord, that help us to think. I just pray, God, that you give us wisdom. Lord, I just pray that you would just Fill us with your wisdom, that you would help us to understand your word, Lord, as we go forward from here. We thank God and praise on Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.